Hello, SolarLune here. This is a little segment that I'm going to call something like let's talk about or let's discuss something. And in this case, we're discussing specifically pixel art games and Steam, and kind of a sort of bias against pixel art games in Steam that I've seemed to observe over the time that I've been using the service. Today, I'm joined by a couple of successful indie developers. They've released their first game on Steam. This is your first game? You want to make sure?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. That's the creators of the game Two Brothers. It's a retro RPG in the style of Game Boy, of the Game Boy handheld system. It was released not too long ago on Steam. This is Andrew and Brian Allenson. So you want to say hello?
Hello, how's it going?
Hey.
Okay, it's very nice to have you today. So, just wanted to get your opinions. I mentioned this to you over Twitter, just basically kind of doing a quick little video, just talking about how I know I've been using Steam for a long time, and I've seen a lot of people, a lot of Steam users seem to dislike 2D games, seem to dislike pixel art games. Have you experienced this in your time using Steam?
Kind of, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, it's not just Steam though. I've seen it all over the internet. It's kind of strange for me because I don't know. I never really realized there was a bias against pixel art in games until recently.
Like, I think after we were greenlit and Two Brothers appeared on Steam, there was like maybe 7 to 10 threads that were made on our forum, like, oh man, are developers running out of ideas? They're making another pixel art game? Like, pixel art is like a gimmick, apparently, to people. So I think there are also people who have gotten straight up angry at us. I remember when we first posted the game on TigSource forums, there was somebody who found Brian's blog and found out that he did 3D art, and 2D was something that he had kind of been dabbling in for Two Brothers. And the guy was like, I don't understand why you would make a 2D game when you have the capability to make a 3D game. Why are you doing this to us? And we're like, well, we're sorry. Forgive us.
Wow. That's something. It's very interesting. It's just, especially considering just how people are so livid and so excitable and angry over specific things, over this specifically. It's not like the graphics are bad. Or by any means, both, I'm sure everyone knows, how much I like pixel art games if you've been seeing, the stuff I've been doing. So, I like pixel art just as much as, as 3D art. So it's just interesting to see so many people hate pixel art in particular or dislike pixel art in particular, as opposed to just, oh, I want something, high def. I want something, bright and flashy. It's not even about like good pixel art anymore. People seem, or at least on Steam, it seems like people don't like retro art or pixel art, as opposed to just, not liking bad art. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think there's sort of like, games are weird because there's some sort of weird tie between what people call good graphics and then there's good art, but people confuse the two things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I kind of look at it as like, one is like, high technical specifications, but then the other thing is, does it look good? Like, in my mind, that's how it's always been. Like, I love pixel art, sometimes. Your games are gorgeous, I have to say. Just gotta throw that out there. Been a fan for a long time. So.
Oh, well, thank you.
But yeah, I've seen so many good-looking 2D games, so many good-looking 3D games, and, I don't see why I have to pick, but...
Yeah, it's very, like, you mentioned, very good point. It's weird because you'll see a lot of games, or I've seen a lot of games, I'm sure everyone has hundreds of games, or, 40, 50, 80, 90, a lot of games in their Steam library. And you look on the forums and it's like, this is a graphically intensive, fairly impressive looking game. And people will be like, man, these graphics, they stink. They look like, they're made in, 1999. And it's like, this is high definition, Bloom, AO, MSAA, times 8. Like, there's so much here, normal mapping and shadow mapping. And then they, say it's like 2003 level. And it's funny. It's just, I'm not sure if it's too much focusing on graphics on the part of a lot of people who play Steam, or rather use Steam, or if it's a matter of, wanting a lot of bang for their buck in terms of, if you buy a game full price, $15. For $15, you can get, a 8-year-old game that looks, fantastic. That was, at the pinnacle of 2012. So it's like, well, if I pay $15 and I'm getting less than that, I'm not getting my money's worth. I feel like maybe that's what people feel like.
I wonder if maybe it has nothing to do with games in general, and it has to do with the general bad attitude of the internet. Like, we can't diagnose all the problems that people on the internet seem to have, but there's always, no matter how awesome something is, there's always going to be a group of people who go out there just to find a reason to hate it. And, even some of, like, the most amazing indie games, like Mercenary Kings, if you go on the forums, there are people who are ripping the graphics apart. And the sprite artist that game is phenomenal. And they're like, oh, these are bad sprites. And it's like, but hold on, they're not. Even by no standard could anyone ever say that looks bad.
Yeah, not technical, not artistic. It's just a good-looking game. I mean,
and like, I think it has to just do with the internet. People, they love to troll. They love to just be about something. And it just so happens that what they decided to pick on that day was pixel art games.
That's a very good point too, because the internet is very, very good for masking one's presence and being anonymous. So even if you have a username and you're well known in a community or many communities, you can say whatever you want and no one can really check you on it. No one's going to say, "Hey, that was wrong, SolarLune. You got to get off the internet." No one can say that. No one's going to say that. And so it's unfortunate because while the internet is very good because for some reasons, being able to conduct business, being able to do things and show your work and things like that, it also attracts people who don't care about others. And so that might be the case, in this case, or in the case of knocking the graphics of games, even though the graphics are, excellent. Like you mentioned Mercenary Kings, I've seen the screenshots, they're excellently pixel, Metal Slug level graphics, almost. I mean, it's a different style, but the technical expertise there is phenomenal, like you said.
And I think a lot of it seems like whenever there's a pixel art game that appears on Greenlight or gets greenlit, there are people who have like a pre-made sort of like manifesto about how much they hate this genre of games, and they just copy and paste it. They replace the name of the game, and like, I mean, I don't want to sound like, like I'm looking for these things now that people have said it, about our game, but I kind of have followed some of the users to see if they're saying the same things about other games, and it seems like they're everywhere. As soon as there's a pixel game, they're going to attack it. And I guess maybe it's, maybe that's what they enjoy. Maybe they don't like to play games and they just like to pick on them.
Yeah, that's true. It's interesting because you'll see a lot of different games, especially on Greenlight, which is Steam's, I guess their now primary way of indie developers getting on the service is to go through Greenlight. So it's interesting because you go to Greenlight and you see a lot of different genres, a lot of different games. I wonder if, what exactly is the community looking for more so? Because you see a lot of, lambasting and kind of railing against more modern or, not modern, but overdone or commonly done things like, first person shooters, zombie shooters, war shooters. You see a lot of that, but then you'll have kind of the rare off title, and it doesn't get well received either. So I'm not sure, like, what exactly does the community look for? What do you think?
I don't know. Sometimes, like,
it seems like you just can't please people.
Yeah, and not that there aren't like reasons to like say stuff about certain games be our game, but it's it almost feels like people like to just get on there and just sort of stand up on the podium and just start preaching about whatever they hate. Or
when we were on Kickstarter, there were people who would say something like, oh, well, what, I want to give you my money, but until I see you're going to cover this feature or do this type of thing, I'm going to hold it back. And they would send us a message, like multiple messages within the same day, like basically with the same point, just because they wanted to like let us know that they had something over us. Like they were dangling $1 above our head and they wanted us to dance for it. And I think people kind of get off on like the sort of playing God of Steam Greenlight with like, oh, well, it's my decision if your game comes out or not.
That's a very good point. Is that it's kind of like a even ground with, or at least I think it should kind of be an even ground. Like the developer makes something cool, he spends his time on it, and then the consumer gets to come, look at it, purchase it, and tell the developer what he thinks about it. And it feels like it's kind of a sliding scale. Like sometimes it'll be more in the developer's favor, and sometimes it will be more in the consumer's favor. Like, you know, a lot of, well, up until recently with the internet and with, you know, Steam and things like that, you couldn't really contact a developer and tell them what you thought of their product. But now with indie developers and more people, you know, making games, putting it on places where you can comment, like YouTube or IndieDB or places like that. Now you can directly talk to a developer and say, hey, I like this, or hey, I don't like that. Could you fix this? You know, that could be like that. And the developer can listen to that suggestion and improve their game.
Right.
But now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, with the situation like we used to have before you couldn't contact developers, I have a feeling that people sort of, like, got into this habit of thinking about games being made by, like, sort of, like, hundreds of faceless people that they'll never hear about. And even though the games are indie, like, you know, even if it's, like, an indie title, I mean, like, people still seem to have that mentality where I can say anything I want about these people or to these people because they're not human. It's almost like I don't think, like, you know, just a normal guy just like them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Game,
very good point. Very good point. And so people can feel like, you know, oh, well, the developer may or may not ever see this, so I can be as rude as I want, or the developer, you know, got my money, so, you know, why isn't the product as good as I envisioned?
There's also another thing that sort of comes where people feel like, I don't know how to, because I don't want to sound like bitter to the way that people talk to game developers, but
especially since people have mostly been good.
Because you know what it is. It's like considering how many people have like bought our game, and like we've probably realistically only received like maybe like 50 negative things as opposed to the much larger number who's actually bought the game. It's really not too bad, but I think people really just enjoy hiding on the internet and saying like really negative things. Because when we were at PAX, you know, our game was a lot buggier at PAX than it is now, and people had no problem going, oh, it's, you know, it's just a bug. But the moment, you know, they're at their computer and the developers aren't around, you know, they can take that opportunity to like tell us that they wish that our mothers would die and they hope that we can buy cars. And it's like, it's actually kind of funny, like in a way, because it's like it almost kind of makes me sort of like empathize with some of the more eccentric and loud indie game designers out there.
I see what you mean. Yeah, it's interesting because, like I said, it's this two-sided thing, and you don't want to sound rude or mean or nasty, you know, especially as a developer who's, you know, trying to make a connection with fans and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to like to kind of, you know, you don't want to be rude, you don't want to be, you know, harsh with your critique, especially on the conduct of your fans. But do you think that basically fans expect developers or indie developers to kind of work harder for their money than a AAA developer?
I think that the expectation is that we work, I would say maybe I could see working harder because they feel like we need to like really prove something to them because you don't have a publisher or, you know, but one thing that I've kind of noticed is people really feel like they won't take into consideration that some developers might be working a 9-to-5 job and then working on the game when they come home. So if you don't respond to an email within 20 minutes, they're like, you guys have terrible, like, you know, PR, what's wrong with you? And it's like, well, okay, well, just remember that a lot of developers, and I'm not just speaking, you know, for us, but I know a lot of developers who, if they don't respond to an email right away, people get so angry. And it's just kind of like, you know, a lot of indie games are made on the weekends. And probably a good 75%. Very few indie studios can work full time.
Yeah, that's true. That's especially true, considering, you know, just, I mean, even if you get on Steam, it's not a guarantee that you will get, millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars.
And then it's also, you have to wait for money. Money doesn't come instantly the moment you sell a game,
That's also true, yeah.
And also, the thing is, for developing for PC, every person's computer is different. So some problems that you run into on some hardware isn't going to be, as recognized as on some machines. So you're going to have to deal with problems as they come in. You may have not foreseen them because you didn't know that someone's going to have a graphics card from 2007 that doesn't support, font smoothing.
Yeah, and even with 2D games, it doesn't get any easier with graphics issues. Just because a game looks like it might be low tech doesn't necessarily mean it runs on hardware from the 80s. Like, it doesn't,
That's true. That's a good point.
Looks like it was made for the Game Boy, but it doesn't run on a Game Boy.
Yeah. So when you decided to go with pixel art aesthetics, did you foresee that it might be kind of not well received on certain areas?
I never thought about it. Honestly, never noticed the negativity until.
I also don't even know if we imagined releasing it, because it's like when you start something, there's always the hope, I'm going to finish it and people are going to like it and people are going to play it. But
at the same time, you've said that before. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like
I don't know about you, but I've got a lot of games that are just kind of floating around on my hard drive. I've never seen the light of day.
We have so much stuff that no one has ever seen that we've put a lot of time into. And Two Brothers is basically the first one that has, come into full fruition. And I think a lot of it has to do with sort of the attention it got early on. So we felt like we had a reason to finish it.
Well, yeah, but even a lot of the stuff we went to shown, so I think it was just because we thought it was good that we even decided to show it in general. So
yeah. But I mean, now I definitely think, having done it once, to our next project, we're thinking a little bit more what people will say about it, but it's influencing what we're going to do. I don't think we're going to try and play to what people want, because at the end of the day, you have to make a game you want to play, and if not, you just end up making Call of Duty.
That's a very good point. That's an extremely good point. I mean, you're not working for a game development studio. You're not working for a company. You're working for yourself, basically. And the whole reason why Steam exists, or a good reason why Steam exists, is for the diversity of titles. It's not fun if, every game's the same and you can go on Steam and purchase the same thing that you can get from GameStop or from Best Buy or from, whatever big box, retailer. The fun is being able to, pop on and I think this, but if you ever went back to in the 90s and you could pick up an SNES game or a Genesis game or anything like that and not know anything about it and purchase it and take it home and have tons of fun with it, Steam and other internet portals like that are kind of like the only places you can do that anymore.
That's true.
If you go into a GameStop, if you go into a Best Buy, every game there you probably have seen before or heard before. There's no such thing as a title that kind of flies under the radar when it comes to, GameStop or anything like that. Most titles are trying to be the big budget, $60 AAA, Rockstar, $1 million thing that has been reported on for years.
Yeah,
so, if people don't like, a product on Steam, a game on Steam, that's cool. But just realize that the reason, even though you don't like, this game, or, different players might not like this game, the developers should still be indie developers making their own games, their own decisions, come to life, because those are the games that are, really that grab you and that kind of make, being a gamer and playing games worth it, because you find something that's like, oh man, I've never, played this before. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I don't know if it's just the hipster in me talking, but all of the games that I'm most excited for are the games that are being made by smaller studios. And it's because I feel like I don't know what to expect as much, because those people haven't necessarily made a million games that I can, get an idea of what the product is going to be like. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like that old excitement of looking at a magazine and seeing one little screenshot of a game going, well, that looks awesome, I want to play that. And it's you're not really going to find out too much about it until you actually play it. And I think that's what I find exciting about indie games.
Yeah, it's true. That's very true. Very true. All right. Well, it kind of spiraled into different subjects. But
Yes.
it's been very nice. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Just really quick, have you noticed any negativity towards your work?
Well, not
Well, he's
immediately.
awesome, so.
Yeah, well, of course. Yeah.
I mean, not immediately. I haven't released the game yet, so. But I this in conversation. Well, for the audience, this entire conversation or interview or however you want to call this thing that we're doing, kind of started when I basically was saying, well, I don't know if I even want to like put Valkian that I've been working on for like 2.5 years, some change, on Steam, because I'm not feeling the community and how, I know that there's going to be people who are like, pixel art, oh, we're in 2013, give my graphics card a job to do. And it's like, I understand it because, you buy, a $200 graphics card, you don't want to play something that you could play on the graphics card that you had beforehand. You want something to push it. But at the same time, it's like,
you got a 3D camera, so it might kind of work to your favor. I don't know.
Well, what's funny though? Even if, and I don't want to like discourage you from putting it on Greenlight, because I think you should put your work on Greenlight. I think your work is really, really awesome. I love the fact that you work in Blender. Not enough people do that, but like, people are still going to look at your game and call it 2D, even if it is technically 3D. And it's just what's going to happen. But like,
that's true.
There are enough awesome people out there who are going to look at your game and go, well, I need to play this, because there was enough people who did it with Two Brothers. It took from May to October, but, it still happened. And there are people, eating the game up. And
that's true. And I would say on Steam even, there's more people who like 2D games, I think, than who hate them. And I think it's just that the people who hate them scream louder. I tend to notice negativity more than anything positive.
I mean, it's like we had when the game came out, we had like 9 really positive reviews in a row, and then there was 1 negative review, and I was like, that really, really hurt. And I was like, but wait, there were 9 places who said it was awesome, and 1 person who said it was bad. So it's like, it is always the things that are negative that you hear the most. So I mean, it's kind of like one of the things you have to overcome as a person. So by all means, put your game on Steam Greenlight. I will vote yes. And if you don't put it on Steam Greenlight, sell it on the Humble Store, because there's definitely an audience for it there.
All right, thank you. I really appreciate that. I thank you a lot. It's very interesting, to hear from another developer, that they have been watching my game or they like it. And it's, you're right that there's always going to be people who don't like your product. So there's not even, you shouldn't worry too much about like, oh, what if they don't like it? Well, no one's going to, not everyone will like it. That's just something you have to put up with.
That's
but
true.
Hopefully, if the product's good enough, a lot of people will like it. And hopefully, it sounds like Tomb Brothers is already a product that's good enough so that a lot of people are liking it. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem. All right. Well, thank you very much for having this little sit down talk with me, Andrew and Brian, creators of Two Brothers on Steam. I'll put the link in the description so you can go ahead and check it out and see what you think. Thank you very much.